Jonathan put up his hand.
Thank you. I'd like to pick up on that. I'll start a little bit with Emacs. I use Emacs. I've been using it for a long time, and it's what TV Raman uses, and that's the sonic interface to Emacs that Arthur's been talking about. And you can use Emacs with the mouse, not for typing, but you can do a lot of things with the mouse. And you can also do it by issuing commands, and you can also do it by keyboard shortcuts. And most commands have got a keyboard shortcut as well, which I've tend to remembered now. So that's quite good. But when I look at web apps, and I sort of know what web apps are like, web pages are like from the inside. They're like crustaceans. They don't have a spine, right? So the muscles are attached to a hard shell, which is the visible side of the thing. Whereas creatures like us that have a spine, the muscles are attached to the spine. Now, how does this relate to what I was saying? If it was a rule that everything you did through the user interface passed through a gate, and that gate was independently accessible, so the purpose of the user interface is to make it easier for some people to issue a command. But that's the only purpose of the user interface, is to allow the user to issue commands, and that keyboard shortcuts can also be used to issue exactly the same repertoire of commands. If that was sort of built in from the beginning, then that's a good starting point for providing accessibility, because you could, so to speak, have a blind shell for the thing, as well as a GUI shell. And the same goes for software that has consoles. And I think it's really interesting that the cloud computing stuff now has command line consoles for doing lots of things. And they're a really useful halfway house between, I'm a beginner, I just want to try something, and I'm a professional, I'm going to automate the whole thing. And Python is a great language for that in that respect, in that you can issue commands a command line in exactly the same way as you can issue them in the program itself. So there are sort of paradigms and tools and so forth and ways of working that can make everything much better. So even though your focus is on computer programming, and our focus is, if you like, well, as tech, it's on document processing and producing documents, I think that we can learn a great deal from each other and cooperate a great deal with each other. We have to be willing to be flexible. I think that for people who are totally without sight, a PDF is a black box that might contain something useful. And a web page might be a better container than a PDF file for whatever it is they're doing. It's certainly something that sort of works more easily in other situations. So that's one of the things I mean by flexibility. To relate to some of the things that Arthur said, I've become a bit more sensitized to this. And when I do things, from time to time, I'm aware of just how important my vision has been for me. For example, did this work correctly? I can look over to one side and see that it worked correctly. And that's a tremendous benefit. Something I seem to have picked up from conversation is that to be successful as a blind user of a computer, you need to be skillful in the use of short-term memory. And I'm hypothesizing here, you have to remember where you put things. Oh, I get some big nods from that. I moved once, and the person who moved me, I sat in the camp with him, he explained how he moved somebody who was blind. And the blind person insisted that he himself should take everything out of the van and bring it into the house. And I didn't understand until it was explained that only by doing it that way could he know where everything was. So in some sense, that developed sense of space, of putting things in the right place, is a real asset in computer programming. A large part of computer programming is pattern and arranging things according to a sensible pattern. So that's something that, and the pattern is an abstract pattern. It's not really a pattern of necessarily physical objects. So I'm presenting that as something where there are skills in computing that people who have a visual disability might actually have a compensating advantage. I'm really delighted that you're making progress with the Holman Prize, and that other people are too, and that you're also thinking, well, I might not get it, and what do I do then? And what continues and what doesn't continue? And I would like to be part of that journey with you, whatever happens. I see the growth of accessibility as something that can help revive the tech organization, the tech structure, and make it something that will continue well into the 21st century. And the fresh perspective that comes about is actually quite close to the vision of Lamport, which is we have a structured document and we will use it in whichever way we want.